what creatine actually does to your body after 60. Most people hear the word creatine and immediately picture young bodybuilders lifting heavy weights at the gym. But what if creatine actually becomes even more important after age 60? Here's the surprising part. The biggest benefits many older adults notice often have nothing to do with bodybuilding at all. We're talking about things that matter in real everyday life: strength, recovery, energy, mobility, balance, and even confidence while moving through the day. Because after 60, maintaining muscle and staying physically active becomes incredibly important for independence and overall quality of life. And honestly, many seniors are shocked by how much small physical improvements can affect daily comfort and confidence. Walks may feel easier, recovery may improve, stairs may feel less exhausting. Daily movement may become smoother and more manageable over time. But there's also a lot of confusion surrounding creatine. Social media often exaggerates the benefits, while other people still wrongly assume it's only for athletes or extreme fitness enthusiasts. The truth is much more practical and much more interesting. Today, we're breaking down what creatine actually does to your body after 60. The good effects, the misunderstood side effects, the myths people still believe, and the changes almost nobody explains properly before starting it. And trust me, number 7 is the one that surprises almost everyone once they experience it for themselves. But before we begin, drop your name and the city you're watching from in the comments below. All right. Let's get started. Number 1. Your muscles naturally start changing. After 60, have you ever noticed everyday movements feeling a little harder than they used to? Maybe climbing stairs takes more effort, getting up from a chair feels slower, or carrying groceries suddenly feels heavier than it once did. That's not your imagination. As we age, the body naturally begins losing muscle mass and strength over time, and this gradual muscle decline affects much more than people realize. It can impact balance, mobility, stamina, stability, energy levels, and overall physical independence. Even small losses in strength can slowly make daily life feel more tiring and physically demanding. Now, creatine doesn't magically stop aging, of course, but research suggests it may help support muscle maintenance and physical performance when combined with regular movement and resistance exercise. That combination becomes incredibly important after 60 because maintaining muscle helps the body stay stronger, steadier, and more capable over time. And honestly, this is where many people completely change how they think about creatine. After a certain age, strength is no longer just about appearance or building bigger muscles. It's about quality of life. It's about staying independent, confident, and physically able to continue doing everyday activities comfortably. Simple things matter. Walking smoothly, carrying groceries without struggling, recovering more easily after activity, staying active enough to travel, socialize, play with grandkids, or simply enjoy daily life without constantly feeling limited by fatigue or weakness. That's why maintaining strength after 60 becomes so valuable, because the goal usually isn't looking younger, it's feeling capable enough to keep living life fully for as long as possible. Number 2, creatine helps your muscles produce energy faster. Here's what creatine actually does inside the body, and honestly, it's much more practical than most people realize. Creatine helps your muscles regenerate quick energy during short bursts of activity. That means it supports the body during moments when muscles need fast, immediate power. At first, that may not sound very exciting, but think about how often your body relies on quick energy throughout a normal day. Standing up from a chair, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, lifting laundry baskets, getting out of bed, and recovering between movements during exercise or walks. Those small moments happen constantly. And after 60, even everyday physical tasks can start feeling more exhausting than they used to. That's why some older adults notice something interesting after taking creatine consistently for several weeks. Daily movement simply starts feeling a little easier. Not dramatically different overnight, but smoother, steadier, and less physically draining overall. Some people describe feeling less wiped out after active days. Others notice they recover faster between activities or feel more stable during movement and exercise. And honestly, those subtle improvements can have a huge impact on confidence and independence over time. Because after a certain age, physical energy isn't just about workouts anymore. It affects how comfortably you move through everyday life, And that's where creatine becomes much more than a gym supplement. It becomes a tool that may help support strength, movement, recovery, and physical function during the activities that actually matter most in real life. Sometimes the biggest changes aren't dramatic transformations. They're the quiet improvements that make everyday life feel just a little easier, stronger, and more manageable. Number 3. Recovery often improves more than expected. Ever feel sore for days after being active? Maybe you go for a long walk, do some yard work, exercise a little harder than usual, and suddenly your body feels exhausted for the next 2 or 3 days. That's actually very common as we get older, because recovery naturally slows down with age. And honestly, that slower recovery is one of the biggest reasons many people gradually stop exercising consistently. When movement always leaves you feeling drained, sore, or wiped out afterward, staying active starts feeling discouraging instead of motivating. That's why one of the most noticeable effects some adults over 60 experience with creatine is that recovery may start feeling smoother and more manageable over time. Muscles may bounce back faster after workouts, walks, stretching sessions, or physically demanding days. Some people simply notice they don't feel quite as exhausted afterward. Now, that doesn't mean soreness disappears completely, or that creatine suddenly turns recovery into magic. Aging still happens, and the body still needs rest, hydration, and proper movement. But even a small improvement in recovery can make a surprisingly big difference in daily life. Because when recovery feels easier, people often become much more willing to stay active consistently. Walks feel less intimidating, exercise feels more manageable, physical activity becomes something the body can handle instead of something it fears. And honestly, that's where the real long-term benefits begin. Consistency matters far more than intensity after 60. The people who keep moving, exercising, and staying physically active over time are often the ones who maintain better strength, mobility, balance, and independence later in life. Sometimes, the biggest benefit of creatine isn't helping people push harder. It's helping them recover well enough to keep showing up consistently. Number 4. The scale may go up at first. Now, this surprises a lot of people when they first start taking creatine. They step on the scale a week later, see the number go up a few pounds, and immediately think, wait, did I just gain fat? Honestly, that reaction is incredibly common, and if nobody explains what's happening ahead of time, it can feel confusing, frustrating, or even discouraging. But in most cases, that early weight increase has very little to do with body fat. Creatine naturally pulls extra water into your muscle cells, increasing hydration inside the muscles themselves. And interestingly, that's actually part of how creatine helps muscles perform, recover, and function more efficiently during physical activity. In other words, the body weight increase many people notice early on is often simply water being stored inside the muscles, not sudden fat gain overnight. The funny thing is, this effect can actually make muscles look slightly fuller, firmer, and healthier fairly quickly. Some people even notice their arms or legs look a little stronger before they experience major strength improvements. But emotionally, seeing the scale rise can still feel uncomfortable at first, especially for people who are trying to lose weight or improve their health. That's why understanding the difference between water weight and fat gain becomes so important. Fat gain happens gradually over time through excess calories. Creatine-related weight changes, meanwhile, often happen fairly quickly because they're tied to muscle hydration. Those are two completely different processes, and honestly, once people understand what's actually happening inside the body, the whole experience becomes much less stressful. Instead of panicking, they begin to realize this effect is often a normal part of how creatine supports muscle function and recovery. Sometimes, the scale doesn't tell the full story about what's really improving inside the body. Number 5. Hydration becomes more important. Did you know creatine can actually expose poor hydration habits? That's one of the most overlooked things people discover after starting it, especially adults over 60. Here's why it happens. Creatine helps pull extra water into your muscle cells, which is part of how it supports muscle performance, recovery, and physical function. But because the muscles are holding on to more water, your body's overall demand for fluids increases too. And honestly, many older adults are already mildly dehydrated without even realizing it. As we age, the body naturally becomes less efficient at regulating fluids, and some people simply don't feel thirsty as often as they used to. So, when creatine increases water demand inside the muscles, those hydration problems can suddenly become much more noticeable. That's when some people start feeling sluggish, tired, bloated, dizzy, or develop headaches. Others notice dry mouth, low energy, muscle cramps, or that they just don't feel right after starting creatine. And unfortunately, many people immediately blame the supplement itself. But in many cases, creatine isn't actually the problem at all. The real issue is simply not drinking enough water to support what the body now needs. Honestly, this is one reason hydration becomes incredibly important while taking creatine, especially after 60. Once people consistently increase their fluid intake throughout the day, many of those uncomfortable symptoms improve quickly, and interestingly, this side effect sometimes turns into a positive wake-up call. Some adults finally realize how little water they were drinking before and start paying more attention to hydration overall. Because at the end of the day, creatine often isn't causing the problem. It's simply revealing hydration habits the body may have already been struggling with for a long time. Number 6. Exercise often starts feeling more manageable. Here's an effect people rarely describe correctly. Most people expect creatine to feel like some giant burst of energy, almost like drinking strong coffee or suddenly becoming superhuman overnight. But honestly, that's usually not how it feels at all. Instead, the changes are often much more subtle and practical. Activity may simply start feeling more manageable. Walks may feel easier to finish without getting as tired. Resistance training may feel slightly smoother and less draining. Muscles may not fatigue quite as quickly during movement or exercise, and recovery between activities may feel a little easier too. And interestingly, many adults over 60 don't describe creatine as giving them more energy. They often describe feeling less wiped out by physical effort instead. That may sound like a small difference, but it matters a lot in everyday life. Because when movement feels less exhausting, people naturally become more willing to stay active consistently. Walks become easier to repeat. Exercise feels less intimidating. Staying physically active starts feeling more realistic instead of overwhelming. And honestly, those small improvements can create huge long-term changes over time. Because after 60, consistency matters far more than intensity. You don't need extreme workouts or exhausting gym sessions to improve health and mobility. What matters most is continuing to move regularly, week after week, month after month. That's why these subtle effects can become so valuable. Small improvements in stamina, recovery, and physical comfort often help people stay active long enough for real long-term progress to happen. Sometimes the biggest benefit of creatine isn't explosive energy at all. It's simply helping everyday movement feel easier, smoother, and more sustainable over time. Number 7. Some people notice mental benefits too. Now here's the effect almost nobody expects when they start taking creatine. Most people think creatine only affects muscles, but it also plays a role in energy production inside the brain. And honestly, this is the part that catches many adults completely off guard. Some people report feeling more mentally alert, focused, or less mentally fatigued during the day after using creatine consistently for a while. Others describe feeling like their brain simply has a little more energy reserve during stressful or exhausting days. Now this doesn't usually feel dramatic. It's not like suddenly becoming a genius overnight or feeling wired with endless mental energy. In fact, the changes are often subtle. People may simply notice they feel a little clearer mentally, less drained by stress, or better able to stay focused throughout the day. And researchers are becoming increasingly interested in this connection between creatine and brain function, especially as people age. Because just like muscles, the brain also requires a huge amount of energy to function properly. Scientists are now studying whether creatine may help support cognitive performance, mental fatigue, and brain energy metabolism in certain situations. Of course, it's important not to exaggerate any of this. Creatine is not some miracle brain supplement, and it's not a replacement for sleep, nutrition, exercise, or overall healthy habits. But the growing scientific interest around creatine and brain health is definitely getting more attention lately. And honestly, for many adults, the mental effects end up being even more surprising than the physical ones. Sometimes the biggest change isn't just feeling physically stronger, it's feeling a little sharper, steadier, and less mentally drained throughout the day too. Number 8. The biggest change is often confidence and independence. This may actually be the most important effect of all, and honestly, it has very little to do with looking more muscular in the mirror. Feeling physically stronger changes how people live their lives. When movement starts feeling easier, confidence often improves naturally. People become more willing to go for walks, travel, exercise, stay socially active, run errands, and continue doing everyday activities independently. Simple things stop feeling quite as intimidating or exhausting. And after 60, that independence becomes incredibly valuable. Because maintaining strength isn't just about fitness anymore. It's about preserving freedom, mobility, and the ability to continue enjoying normal daily life without constantly depending on others for help. Even small improvements in physical function can make a huge emotional difference over time. Some people notice they feel more confident getting out of the house. Others become more active because their body feels more capable and reliable again. Some simply feel encouraged knowing they can still improve physically instead of assuming decline is unavoidable. And honestly, that psychological shift matters far more than most people realize. When the body feels stronger, people often move more. When people move more, they tend to feel healthier, more energetic, and more engaged with life overall. That creates a powerful cycle that can positively affect both physical and mental well-being. That's why, for many adults over 60, the real benefit of creatine isn't about building huge muscles at all. It's about helping support the strength, recovery, confidence, and physical function needed to keep doing the things they love for as long as possible. Sometimes the most meaningful transformation isn't looking younger. It's continuing to live life with more freedom, movement, and independence. So, what does creatine actually do to your body after 60? The truth is, it's not just about gym performance. It's about supporting strength, recovery, mobility, hydration, confidence, and overall quality of life as we age. What about you? Have you ever considered trying creatine after 60, or are you already using it? And which of these effects surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more honest health and fitness content without the hype.